Hey, yo, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, as part of our Breeders' Cup Handicapping series, today we're going to be looking at the Turf Sprint. So let's dive into it. So here's the Turf Sprint, and it's going to be run at 5 furlongs. And sadly, not on the Hillside Turf course. That's always a much more fun race. But this is what it is, so let's take a look at it. Big Invasion is on the rail, and the one thing about Big Invasion is that he never seems to get the trip that he needs. And I think he's in a similar predicament here, being on the rail, coming from off the pace. Christophe Clement, excellent trainer. He'll be ready to run. There's no doubt about that. But it just seems that this horse is snake bit. He just finds trouble so often. And as we know, a lot of times when horses find trouble, once they find it, a lot of them find it all the time. And he's just one of those horses to me. He will definitely be there, and I think he will is good enough to be in the money for certain. But I do wonder about the fact that he's just always finding trouble. And maybe the fact that there's less distance, there's less propensity to find it. I don't know. But it's just a thing with him. He always seems to find trouble in these races. And that's my really only big knock on him. And I think that's why you're getting 15 to 1. I think he's going to finish in the money because that's what he does. And he's a nice horse, but he's going to need some racing luck, which he doesn't normally get in order to factor in this race or to be a win candidate, let's say. Bradzel is kind of interesting. This horse is seems to have fallen off of form. Earlier at Royal Ascot in the King's Stand, he kind of won as a bit of a surprise. He had been a highly touted 2-year-old, and he had been kind of okay to start his 3-year-old campaign, put it all together at Ascot, and then fell right off again in his next 2 starts in the Nunsell, or the Nunthorpe rather, and the Flying Five. So don't really know what we're going to get with this one. That's kind of the issue. Now, the one thing I will say is that the King's Stand at Ascot, the turf was firmer than it normally is in Europe, and perhaps that's the difference. We'll just have to see. But 5 to 1 is a little short for this horse because I think there's some question marks for him. So I'd like to have a better price before I invest in him. But he's one maybe we think about if we can get a little bit better price. Here's our defending champ, Caravel. And earlier in the year, she looked like her old self, really picked up where she left off in the Breeders' Cup and the Shakertown, the Unbridled Sydney, the Jaipur. She was just running right along, no problems at all. Fillies, boys, didn't matter. Then she hit the Troy Stakes. And I was kind of the belief at that time that she was sort of due for a bad race, and she found it. And the really disturbing thing is that then in the Franklin, she followed it up with a good race, I'd say, by anybody else's standards except hers. Tonyan was able to run her down. So I don't know that perhaps at 6 years old, maybe Father Time has started to get to her a little bit. She's a good horse. We know this. And I think that she will run her race. I'm just not sure it's good enough in this case. I think underneath is more likely, and I don't want too short a price on her. If I get anything lower than 5 to 1, like she becomes the favorite or whatnot, I might even consider tossing. Tonyan is one on the rise. Phil D'Amato trains, and Hector Barrios is a good turf rider when he's not on the Hillside course. This one is 3 for 4 in the money at Santa Anita with 2 wins, and is 4 for 4 in the money at the distance. So this is a good spot for Tonyan. The Franklin Stakes last time ran a really nice race to knock out Caravel. So he's coming into this race in good form, and another move forward perhaps would put her over the top. At 15 to 1, you're getting a nice price, and this is one that I think we have to consider as a sleeper. Living the Dream, I think, is the one to beat in this race. She's coming into the race after running. Look at those fractions in the Woodford. 20, 43, and 55. All that, and yet she was still able to keep on in this race and not just fall off a cliff completely. I think that shows a lot of class. She breaks well. I think she's going to be on the lead, being to the inside, and I think she's a very good bet to follow all the way through and take this. She beat some very good horses in the Nunthorpe. Highfield Princess is a monster in turf sprints, as well as Bradsell. She has run against, you got Dramatized. There's another one in her back class that she competed with. This is a really good horse, and I think he has got a really good chance to win this race, and I think is a prime win candidate. Gear Jockey, to me, is a horse for the course at Kentucky Downs and nothing more. I can't see anything past that. If you bookend those 2 turf sprint wins between there, she really didn't run very much at all, including the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint last year, where she was a distant, non-factoring 6th. This is a weird horse. It just seems like Kentucky Downs is the place where she can win, and I don't see much to the contrary. Is she coming into the race in good form? I guess, but awful hard to trust given her form between races at Kentucky Downs. So for me, I'm going to pass. No Balls, we know what he wants to do. He wants to get right to the lead. Larry Ravelli's horses, that's what they do. This one has plenty of early lick. We know this. And 5 furlongs, the cutback by a half a furlong from what he's been running at, I think is a very good thing for this horse. Going to have to deal with Living the Dream, and I think that's a really tall order. But is a fighter and will compete. And you see that he likes to run pretty quick on the front end too, given his fractions. At the Haas, 21 and 43 is nothing to sneeze at. So there's plenty of speed here and should be prominent early. Asos Fables really didn't care for the Prix de l'Abbey at Longchamp. Was kind of a non-factoring third. It looked to me like this one would appreciate more ground. So I think 5 furlongs can't be considered the ideal distance for this one. You get Aidan O'Brien, you get Ryan Moore, and you get Sangster's Gangsters as ownership. Those are A-level connections. They're lethal in Europe. But this one, I think, is more likely to be under. At 12-1, you get some decent value. But I think this one needs a little more ground to be effective. Roses for Deborah is a horse that I think we ought to pay attention to. She seems to be on the upswing and just didn't like the yielding turf at Parks last time. So you can draw a line through that. If you do, you see 4 straight wins prior, all just rating just off the pace. I think that's going to be an excellent place to be in this race. Christophe Clement is, as we know, extremely proficient on turf. You get a Rod Ortiz. I think there's a lot of things to like about Roses for Deborah in this race, and I think is a prime win candidate. Motorius is one of the California horses who I think has a really good shot to be a Breeders' Cup winner. Phil D'Amato is the trainer. You get Flavian Pratt aboard, and this one in the Green Flash last time had a really solid race, displayed an excellent kick, and it's not easy to win a Santa Anita turf sprint from behind. But I think this one is definitely coming into this race in excellent form, and I think is a prime win candidate and one we have to think about. At 5-1, that's an excellent price. Jasper Cron is the Japanese import, and I think this one probably would need a little more ground to be effective. It's going to be on the front end. The Sprinter Stakes last time was at 6 furlongs, and he was up on the engine the whole way and before fading. And it looks to me like that would be more likely what you could expect from this one in this race. You see, has been running at longer distances and did have a win at 5 furlongs. That's true. But I just consider this one to be a fringe player. I like others better, particularly those running on the front end. And from the 11 hole, you can't really like that. Arzac was extremely interesting to me. That Woodford Stakes was just one of those really unique runs. She was closing, stopped, and then started again and displayed a really big kick in the stretch to win. And I think that is a great precursor for this race. So I think Arzac is coming into this race in really good form. And I don't think she's going to be coming from the clouds. She'll probably be about mid-pack. And if Luis Saez can work out a trip, I think this one's got a tremendous chance to win. And I really like as a win candidate. And at 6-1, you're getting a really good price. If we do have any defections, we do have some also eligibles. One timer is another one from Larry Ravelli. Lost a heartbreaker to Gear Jockey last time. Ran an excellent race. This one I think is in good form. Probably not quite as fast as some of the others in this race, but is in good form and has the potential, I think, probably to be more under. Just doesn't quite have the top end to compete with some of the better ones in here. Beer Can Man always comes from behind and always finds a way to work out a trip and get into the money, but doesn't win. And I think that's probably the extent of Beer Can Man's participation here. Phil D'Amato, Little Red Feather Racing, nice connections. And Flavian Pratt, I guess if this one draws in, we'll have to see which one he chooses. If he goes to Beer Can Man, then I think that we have to consider to be very live in the race. But I think Underneath is probably more likely. Laneway is a horse that I didn't necessarily like, but Dick Mandela is on Breeders' Cup Day at Santa Anita. You have to take seriously. This one's going to need a lot of help to draw in, but is coming in third off the layoff. Ran a nice one in the Eddie D last time. Seems to be on the upswing, but I do wonder if he's got the top end to win this. I think Underneath probably more likely. And then finally, Twilight Gleaming, Wesley Ward. This was a killer horse earlier in the year and prior, and the form really has sort of tailed off, and inexplicably went to Ascot, and since coming back, really hasn't done a whole lot of running. And it's, Wesley Ward's the king of turf sprints, and it's really a big surprise that this one's fallen off the radar quite so quickly. And from the far outside in this race, I would have to consider a fringe player at best. And if he draws in, or she draws in rather, I would toss. So here's what we've got from the turf sprint. And I'll note right off the bat, there are a couple of horses who I could very well see throwing in the mix. Big Invasion and Tony Ann. I'm more concerned with Tony Ann's top end and Big Invasion's propensity for finding trouble, and the fact that he's going to be coming from the rear. I think it's going to be a very difficult proposition to win a turf sprint coming from way back, especially in a big field. So the ones that I like are Living the Dream. I really like. I think is the speed of the speed. Doesn't have to set quite so hot of fractions as he did last time. And if you just set reasonable ones, I think is a threat to wire this field. Obviously got a lot of speed. Bradzo, I'm throwing in here because on the firmer turf, I think this one might run a little better than he has recently. And if he gets back to that Ascot form, would be pretty tough to beat. Caravel, the defending champion, of course. I think her form is a little off from what it was last year, and I think she's vulnerable. But she is a defending champ, and you can't overlook her. Certainly capable of winning the race on a good day. Roses for Deborah, to me, offers excellent value at 12-1. You can draw a line through that race at Parks. It was a bog. It was raining all day. On firmer turf, I think she's got a much better chance to factor. Should be sitting just off the leaders in prime position to strike. and I think has a really good chance to win this at a price. Arzac, I really liked the close I saw the last race. It was kind of weird how it was a stop and start in the middle of it, but that showed a big turn of foot coming into the race in good form. I'd like a little better price than 6-1, to be honest, but I think this is one that definitely can factor in this race. Motorius, same thing. Really like the kick in the last race. Will be a little more forwardly placed, I think, than Big Invasion, and that gives him an edge. I like the turn of foot, and I think that he's will have every chance. If there is a pace meltdown, and it could happen, especially when you got horses like No Balls in the race, then Motorius might be there to pick up the pieces. So that's the Turf Sprint. Looks like it's going to be a wild one. I like Living the Dream, but Roses for Deborah is pretty enticing as well, and I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go. Hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy, and I wish you the best of luck as always, of course. And if you do like content like this, please like and subscribe. And thanks to all of you who have recently signed on. We will continue with our post through the Sprint, which is up next, so be on the lookout for that. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.